Anthony struggled to understand why his son, Mike, came home hungry every day. Each time they sent him off to school, he carried a lunchbox with him, and there should have been enough inside to keep the little boy satisfied. To compound the issue, little Mike appeared genuinely terrified whenever his parents inquired about it. Growing increasingly concerned, Anthony decided to approach the school to investigate the matter further. However, to his surprise, the principal was just as clueless about the situation as Anthony was. Together, they resolved to take a different approach and began questioning Mike's classmates. The revelations from the other students left Anthony shocked to his core. They revealed that Mike never brought lunch from home. This information left him perplexed, as it seemed the other students believed Mike didn't have food due to his family's financial situation. Anthony couldn't help but wonder if something had transpired in the hallway or during Mike's journey to school. He shared his worries with the principal, who offered to assist in uncovering the truth. When Mike was called out of class and asked about the food, he started crying, which made his parents feel even worse. But he didn't offer up any information. The principal immediately called the substitute teacher, Clive, into his office, and when he saw Anthony sitting there, his demeanor changed. The principal confronted Clive about Mike and his situation, but Clive said he had no idea what they were talking about. However, his act wasn't as convincing as he believed it was, since Mike refused to tell them what was happening, and Clive insisted that he knew nothing. Their hands were tied. Over the next few days, the situation seemed to get worse. Mike refused to talk to his parents, making it look like Anthony's visit to the principal worsened matters. Anthony had had enough of waiting and decided it would be best to take matters into his own hands. The very next day, he drove to the school and confronted Clive. When Anthony confronted Clive, the substitute teacher remained calm, but he did tell Anthony that things weren't as they appeared to be. After the two men had their conversation, every single alarm bell in Anthony's head went off. It wasn't what the teacher said that had his suspicions raised, though. It was just that the whole interaction gave Anthony a strange feeling. On his way home, Clive's words kept echoing through Anthony's mind. When he got home, Anthony came up with a fantastic idea. He put Clive's full name into Google, hoping he would get some answers. To his great astonishment, he could only find the man listed on one website. It was the primary school he had worked at before joining Mike's school. He decided to call the school and hear what they had to say, but the information they gave him had his concerns shooting through the roof. Anthony couldn't contain his concern anymore, and during the family dinner, he asked Mike if Clive was doing something they needed to know about. Once again, Mike seemed terrified. The child was so scared that he was stuttering, but he said the exact same words that Clive said. Because of that, Anthony wasn't convinced. It was almost as if his son had been told what to say. Anthony knew that there was definitely something strange going on, and all had to do with his son's teacher. Anthony made his way into the principal's office, despite his assistant telling him he needed an appointment. He walked over to the principal, sitting in his chair, and definitely surprised him. Anthony explained everything he suspected to the principal. He looked concerned, but then shook his head. Clearly something was wrong. The principal looked Anthony dead in the eyes and said, "I'm sorry, there's not much that I can do without any evidence." Anthony felt his blood begin to boil. Would he really do nothing? Anthony was fuming as he went home, but he was already formulating a plan in his head. He knew exactly what would help his son, but he knew it would be very risky. The next day, Anthony was ready to go forward with his plan. While his son was getting ready for school, he slipped something small into the front pouch of his backpack. His son came down the stairs and ate breakfast before they left together to go to school. Anthony dropped him off, smiling to himself for his shrewdness. The teacher's secret would finally be out. Anthony had put a recording device in his son's backpack. He'd be able to record the entire interaction between his son and the teacher. Later that day, Anthony picked up Mike from school and deftly swiped the recorder back from the backpack. He asked his son how his day was, but yet again he looked sad. That's when Anthony knew that he was doing the right thing. He took out the recorder and played it back, but when he heard the conversation between his son and his teacher, he knew what he had to do. Anthony called the principal and organized a meeting the next day. He explained that he had the evidence that would break the case wide open. The next day after school, Anthony sat with Mike and the principal in his office. After waiting for 5 minutes, Clive, the teacher, came in as well. He looked surprised, as if he had no idea what was coming. Anthony smiled in satisfaction and asked the important question, "Should I play the recording for you, principal?" Anthony got permission and started playing the recording. He watched the teacher go pale as he heard his voice come up on the recorder. He could tell that all of the blood had drained from his face. The room fell into disbelief as they processed the astonishing revelation. They listened as Mike shared his lunch with Clive, only to hear him later calling another boy. Clive then passed the food on to that student. Mike, breaking the silence, finally disclosed the secret to everyone present. He had been collaborating with his teacher to provide lunch for a less privileged classmate every day, as the child couldn't afford their own meal. Mike felt a sense of fulfillment in helping a fellow student in need, and Clive expressed his pride in Mike's compassion. Despite feeling somewhat embarrassed and wanting to keep this act of kindness a secret, Mike's selflessness touched everyone. From that point forward, Anthony began packing 2 lunches for his son.